and I'm going to repeat this one time, Sue, I'm sorry. I think it's important that we realize when we say God is faithful to us, it's not faithful to the fact that we're going to put thousands of dollars in the bank. Some people can do that, and that's great. But He's faithful to get us by, to clothe us, and to put food in our mouths, and make sure our vehicles are running, and we've got heat. When we're faithful to Him, He's faithful to us. But I don't want to just talk about our tithe. I think that's important. It's biblical. It's what we're called to do, and it's part of being faithful to the Lord, and it's part of Him being faithful to us. But I think we think about just the money, but we don't think about the gifts that the Lord has given us, the spiritual gifts and the passions that God has put into us. When we take the offering, we just think about the money, and we forget the other part that's normally always said is about the gifts that God has given us, the passions He's put into our lives. First Peter 4:11. 4:10 and 11. God has given gifts to each of you from His great variety of spiritual gifts. Manage them well, that God's generosity can flow through you. Are you called to be a speaker? Then speak as though God Himself were speaking through you. Were you called to help others? Do it with all the strength and energy that God supplies. And God will be given glory in everything through Jesus Christ. All glory and power belong to Him forever and ever. God has given us all gifts. He's given us spiritual gifts, and He's put passions in our heart. And just as well as He wants us to be faithful with our money, I think He wants us to be faithful with our gifts as well. I think that He has provided for us to have certain gifts as well as He's provided for us to have certain passions and to have all the stuff that goes along with that. But I think that's one thing that we choose kind of sometimes just to hold in and not use for God. I look at some of these basketball players in the NBA and college and stuff like that. They have a gift. Not only do they have a gift of being tall and being athletic, and they have a passion for doing what they're doing, I cannot jump more than 6 inches. I mean, it's embarrassing to see me jump. I was joking with Amani about doing hurdles because I'd get a cramp being a hurdler. I mean, I would embarrass myself. But you have a gift to be able to do that. And our sports figures, they have a gift to be able to do their sports. And people say, well, that's not really a gift. That's not really doing anything for God. If our sports figures play basketball for God and use their status as pro and elite and athletes to benefit God, that's what He wants. Just in the same aspect, we have people that part of their gift is being a listener, being someone that is there, being someone that's compassionate. If we use that gift to help, we're benefiting the kingdom. And that's part of what God is saying to us. I've given you gifts, but you are to use that. God says you're to use that in the church. But that's one aspect. When God says church, He doesn't mean this building. He doesn't mean these walls. Church to me, and I believe what Jesus meant as church is if you're at Perkins, you're doing church at Perkins. So it doesn't matter if you're in a church building. When you're walking the streets in our community, you're in church. So are you using your gifts that God has given you in church? It's easy to be faithful sometimes with money. It's easy to be faithful because we can cut a check and say, here you go. You might not always be able to give 10%, maybe give 5%, maybe give 2%. I don't really think God's going to punish us for that. But what we're not usually faithful in is using our gifts and using our talents and using our passions to benefit God. Because it's something we just say, oh, that's just what I do. No, if you've been given a gift of compassion, you need to use that gift. If you've been given the gift to teach, you can use that gift. One of the most important things to remember is when you're using your gift, you probably won't even know the people that you've affected. You have a sphere of influence that you're influencing people that you don't even know you're influencing. I had a teacher in high school, Jim Bourne. Greatest guy, greatest teacher I've ever had. He was one of these teachers where you could walk up and he'd talk to you. He was an archery hunter, and him and I got along great. We would talk about hunting and stuff like that. And He's one of those guys, you stop over his house and you'd say, hey, what's going on? And you'd sit and talk and do all that. He had such a passion for teaching, but also was so compassionate for people like me that just needed someone to talk with. He doesn't even realize. I told him, I ran into him at Kmart. This was like 2 years ago. I ran into him at Kmart in the sporting goods section. I said, listen, I got to talk to you for a second. I said, thank you. He says, for what? I said, not only did you teach me, you helped me become who I am today. And he was totally dumbfounded. Because you really think that I helped you become the person you are today? I said, yeah. Because he used his gifts. He used his gift as a teacher and used his gift of being compassionate to benefit me. And then it doesn't benefit me when we use our gifts. It benefits God.